Well, it's important to recognize that Kent came to the Ethics Commission at a really crucial moment. From its creation in 1987, the commission was under constant siege by the legislature and by several governors. And there was a meltdown that I won't try to describe that occurred in 2000. But what it amounted to was that the members of the commission fired a special prosecutor who was investigating one of their members and the executive director at the time. So it was a terrible meltdown, and many of us wondered if we'd ever find another person would accept the position as executive director of the Ethics Commission. And fortunately, Kent stepped into the breach. I think the length of his tenure has been crucial. The commission has gone through this period when its crucial authority over the legislature was overturned in 2009 by a Rhode Island Supreme Court decision that I think was badly flawed. But nonetheless, some of us thought it would never again have that authority. And it took until 2016 to restore that authority with a constitutional amendment. I think that now the commission is well established with constitutional authority over all public officials, as it was intended to have from the beginning. Now going forward, it will be strong. And Kent's tenure from 2001 to 2018 is by far the longest of anyone serving at the Ethics Commission, but it also got all the procedures and most of the necessary regulations in place for the commission to be effective. In
some very rocky times, and he provided a stability that kept the commission going, made it as unpolitical as possible, and brought it through to a point where it's renewed, I think, in its strength and its jurisdiction. And I think it's a great credit to him for bringing the commission through those difficult times by being a quiet presence, an unpolitical person who never made it about himself. Well, it's funny because I think one of Kent's strengths was that he really was quiet. He was really behind the scenes. He was really a calm sort of presence. And I think that the great tribute to him is that during times when we were being criticized a lot in the legislative arena, he just maintained a calm presence and brought the commission through without getting into any mudslinging. He avoided any of the political problems as best as he could. And I think it's a tribute to him that the commission survived and has actually gained both its jurisdiction back and it's maintained its budget. And it really, the stability and continuing presence of the commission is to his great credit.
First, I'd like to thank Common Cause and the board members and all the members of Common Cause for this award this evening. I know it's a public service award for good government, and as much as it honors me, I think it even honors more the commission itself. And the commission itself and its staff are really, in my view, and especially now looking back on it since I've been gone, a real treasure of the state of Rhode Island. And the Ethics Commission is a good place to be. It's a good place to be from. I also want to thank my staff. They're very dedicated. 8 of the 12 people that are there were with me more than 15 years and are still there to carry on. That continuity that we wanted when I first started is now there. And there's a tremendous amount of experience and dedication and unselfish people on the staff at the Ethics Commission. And I see that going forward, hopefully for many years. The commission itself is also experienced, and they are always on top of the issues that are presented to them. Last, but the voters especially gave us a strong reaffirmation of what we do in the election of 2016, where after the normal course of business of interpreting the law and enforcing the law enforcing the Code of Ethics, the Supreme Court of the state of Rhode Island uncovered a inconsistency in the constitutional. We're a constitutional entity at the Ethics Commission. That's very important. But it's also the source of some very basic questions that often come up, and that was one of them. And the only way to clarify the question that arose in the very important jurisdiction that we had, in part over the legislative branch of government, had to be resolved by the courts, but ultimately through a change in the Constitution by the people of the state of Rhode Island. And the voters overwhelmingly approved the change that clarified that and indeed strengthened the Ethics Commission even more. So I need to thank not only the commissioners, not only the excellent staff, the professional staff at the Ethics Commission, but the voters of the state of Rhode Island. And I know Common Cause had a part in leading that change and that election result, so I also thank them.